welcome to another video and welcome to my September wrap up. I have got quite a big pile in front of me. I think that September was my best reading month yet. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't know what I'm basing that on, because when I look at my stats, I read more books in March, but March I read all of the Saga graphic novels. That's like 9 books, but they're all graphic novels, you know. This is my second highest reading amount of books read. I read more pages in July, but only by like 50. And I actually don't know in terms of average star rating, but I feel like I had a pretty good month in terms of average star rating. And even if I have no stats to back up my claim that this was my best reading month yet this year, it just felt like a really good reading month, so I'm going with it. Now, next, I've got a lot of books to go through. I read 18 books this month, or last month, plus 2 DNFs. So I think that the vast majority of these books are featured in a vlog or another, so I will link vlogs up here if they are applicable, but yeah, I'm going to kind of rattle through these ones fairly quickly, just because, like I said, I've got quite a lot to go through and I'm sure we don't all want to sit here for 5 weeks. So like I said, I read 18 books. 50% of my books, 9 of them were digital, which is amazing for me. I normally don't read that much on my Kindle, but we'll get into why that was. My average star rating this month was 3.97. Let's call that a 4-star, because why wouldn't we? That's a really good average rating. In terms of breaking that down, I had 1 2-star, 6 3.5 stars, 5 4 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 3 5 stars. Again, amazing. And in terms of genres, now I'm taking this from Storygraph, so not necessarily the genre that I would correlate to this book, but according to Storygraph, I read a lot of romance. My top genres were romance, contemporary, young adult, thriller, mystery, fantasy. And then we get into ones where it's like just one. So a fair range, but generally speaking, a lot of romance. Let's get into it. So where are we? We're going to go through in chronological order of like what I started reading with and where we ended. So at the start of this month, I had a week in Spain. I travelled hand luggage only, so I only took my Kindle, and I read, quite honestly, a shit ton of books. I think I read 8 books in 7 days, which is extortionate. Fully accept that. But I do have a vlog that I'll link up here where I was reading all those books. So first of all, I read The Marriage Act by John Mars. This is a kind of sci-fi dystopia thriller where marriage is now kind of almost enforced. You are very strongly persuaded to be married and have a smart marriage where there is an AI who will check to see if you're in a happy marriage, and if not, they will help you. And it's similar to The One. In fact, it's set in the same world as The One. We're following multiple characters who do all tie together at the end. I really liked this one. I had a great time reading it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't my favourite. It's not one that I'm going to be kind of like shouting about from the rooftops, but I had a good time. Next, I read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. So I read this one on my ebook again, and this one's on Kindle Unlimited, and I think I was reading the self-published version, not the traditionally published version. And the reason why I think that is important is the issues that I had with the copy of the book that I read, I have been told have all been fixed in the traditionally published version. But again, I can't rate and review a book that I didn't read. So the book that I read, I gave When the Moon Hatched 3.5 stars. However, I will put a big caveat on that my issues with the book were around, I didn't really understand the world. I believe that there is now like a kind of info dumpy, prologue-y world building in the traditional published book. I found the pacing a little bit weird. Some parts were really fast paced, some parts were really slow paced. Again, I have been told that is fixed in the traditionally published version. And I kind of didn't quite understand the motivations of the characters. And again, I've been told that has been made a lot more clear in the traditionally published version. I basically gave a semi-rant review on this book to my friends. And one of my friends, Susanna, who has read the traditionally published version, was like, okay, cool. But you realise you're wrong on all of these counts because all of these counts are addressed in the traditionally published book. And I was like, oh, okay. So I definitely want to continue the series. And I think when book 2 comes out, I will read book 1 again, but try and get hold of the traditionally published version because I think that my 3.5 star rating is not 100% fair to the final copy of the book. Next, I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. I again gave this one 3.5 stars. This is a super, super cute, very, very Gilmore Girls coded. We're following our main character who moves to a small town. She's opening up a coffee shop. She meets this grumpy vegetable produce guy and they end up hitting it off. There's all of these crazy town meetings and there's a romance. It's very, very cute. If you like Gilmore Girls, you will like this book. I don't really have much more to say about it than that. So next up, I read my lowest rated book of the month, which was The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. I gave this book 2 stars. I should really have DNF'd it, I'll be totally honest with you. I just didn't care. Throughout the whole time reading this book, I just did not care. I literally had like 0 fucks to give. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the plot. I didn't care about the mystery. There was no part of that book that I was intrigued by and cared about, so 2 stars. The next book I read was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I read this on my Kindle again. This is one that I had as an ebook. I bought it as an ebook because I was like, I don't think I'm going to massively love this book, so I'm just going to, get the ebook and then it's fine. I love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's a very high 4.5. It could be potentially rounded up to a 5, but I give half-star ratings anyway. I really like Rebecca Ross's writing. I have now started 2 of her duologies and I have not continued with either. But yeah, Divine Rivals I loved. I thought the writing was impeccable. I loved the characters. I loved the setting. It's kind of got a World War I inspired backdrop of this like war that is happening. And our 2 characters are journalists. I did feel that the war setting was like the kind of world and like the gods that started this war wasn't quite developed enough for my taste. I wanted a little bit more from that, but I loved it, and I feel like actually based on the ending of Divine Rivals, I feel like we'll see more of that in book 2. Next up, my first 5-star of the month, I read The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Again, read this one on my Kindle. Obsessed. Absolutely obsessed. So The Deal came out in about 2015. So the comparison that I'm going to make here is basically the wrong way around, but this is the way that I read them. If you liked Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, you will like The Deal. And again, obviously I know that Icebreaker came after The Deal, so it's the wrong way around, but it makes sense in my head, okay. I thought this book was beautiful. I loved the cinnamon roll hockey players. They've got this like bad boy reputation. All of the team got this kind of bad boy reputations, but they're actually soft, lovely, adorable cinnamon rolls. I loved the banter between our main characters. I loved the romance. I loved that there was more to the plot than just sex. I just thought this book was fantastic. I loved it. I really want to continue this series. I just didn't get the chance to this month. So yeah, 5-star. Then I read Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. Apologies, I don't think I pronounced that right. So Tender as the Flesh is a really, really hard one for me to review. I gave it 3.5 stars. Now, I don't know if that is altogether a fair rating, because that book is still with me. I can still vividly recall scenes in that book. And admittedly, I don't think I want to be vividly recalling any of the scenes in that book, especially not, well, any of the scenes in that book. It is incredibly graphic, incredibly gruesome, but it left a really lasting impression, you know? So I think my reason for giving it 3.5 is I was so grossed out reading this book. Like, I felt physically sick reading this book and I had to put it down. Like, the next book that I read is another hockey romance, actually. Spoilers. I'm in my ice hockey era. But I had to, like, find a fluffy romance because I was like, I can't. I need something as polar opposite. I really need to just read something where there is no hurt in this world. I don't know. I really just don't know what to say about Tender as the Flesh. If you are looking for a spooky season read that is kind of gruesome, kind of gross, but also will stick with you, read it. I will, however, say check your triggers. This is incredibly graphic. There is a whole scene, a very long graphic scene of a slaughterhouse. Check your triggers is all I'm going to say on that one. If you don't know, Tender as the Flesh is a cannibal story where all of the animals on the planet, their meat is now poisonous, so humans have come to breeding and eating humans. Yeah. Next, like I said, I needed to just get away from that, and I went back to hockey romance. So I read Icebound by Meredith Trapp. I gave this book 4.5 stars and I have been raving about it to everybody since then. I thought this book was fantastic. It's an age gap romance, so we're following our older hockey player who falls for a younger woman. We've again got the cinnamon roll hockey player. We've got all of the kind of discussions around like how age is like just a concept, and I love that. This book, I literally devoured it and I was like, why is nobody talking about this book? It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, honestly, if you, like me, are in your ice hockey era, Icebound needs to be added to your repertoire. Likewise, the sequel, which I think is called Heartbound, but I'll pop it up here. That one is a cowboy romance. So, single dad cowboy romance. So, you know, if you are either in your hockey era or your cowboy era, Meredith Trapp has you covered. I'm very excited to read the sequel. Speaking of sequels, I still was in my ice hockey romance era and still needed kind of some like romancy palette cleansers. So I read Powerless by Elsie Silver. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This one is Jasper's story, Jasper and Sloane, and he is a hockey player. She is a ballerina, kind of prima donna, and I really loved it. From book one, I've been excited to get to Jasper's story and I'm excited to get to Beau's story. Those are the two characters that I feel I'm going to most connect to, and I definitely connected with Jasper. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. I have no more to say. 4.5 stars. I'm now going to just go off track slightly and I'm going to talk about my 2 DNFs of the month. First of all, I DNF'd The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. I stopped reading this one at page 40. Honestly, so I picked this one up in August and I obviously read 40 pages, and then it sat by my bed to be like, oh, I'll read a little bit of that one before bed. However, it's a book that when I'm faced with lying in bed, do I want to read a book or do I want to scroll on my phone? I have been picking up my phone. So I just thought, why am I keeping this one as a currently reading book when I'm not currently reading it? So I'm going to DNF Elizabeth Frankenstein. The first 40 pages that I read were intriguing me. It gave me vibes of, is it Escaping Prince Dracula? Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerry Maniscalco, the second one in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series anyway. In that our main character, Elizabeth, was kind of travelling to try and find like this man. I felt like I liked the vibes. I feel like it's one of those where if I had a weekend to sit and I had nothing else to read, if I had a weekend to just sit and was told I had to read this one, I could read it and I could probably have a good time. But it's probably never going to come out at more than a 3-star for me. It's not a book that was intriguing me enough to want to like prioritize it. So while I think that the cover is gloriously horrific, I think this one is going to be better placed with a different home. And the second DNF of the month, this one is actually sadder. I DNF'd The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. So again, my bookmark is still in there. I got 90 pages into this one. Now this one is a soft DNF. I'm not going to unhaul this book. I believe this was wrong book, wrong time for me. Because when I spoke to my friends about it, who again have got similar reading taste to me and have read this book, they all loved this book. And I was like, look, I'm 90 pages in and I'm not yet intrigued. When does like the intrigue happen? When does the plot start? And my friends are like, it started. So if you're not intrigued right now, it's a you problem. And then when I was like, okay, well, so I spoke to my friend Zoo, who again has got very, very similar reading taste to me. And I was like, what do you think I should do? Because this has so many buzzwords for me, but it's not buzzing. And she was like, I think you will like it, but I don't think you're liking it right now. So I'm going to keep hold of Foxglove King. It is going to be a soft DNF. Potentially, it's probably going to end up going into my unhaul pile, into my self-destruct pile, sorry, for 2025. So if I haven't read it by the end of next year, then it will say bye. But yeah, it just wasn't doing it for me right now. Okay, next up we've got the Jacqueline Wilson series. So again, vlog will go up here. But I read the Girls series and Think Again by Jacqueline Wilson. So the Girls series, I've got my little 90s box set down here. I had a fantastic time reading all of these. I gave Girls in Love 3.5 stars. My issue with Girls in Love is I feel like 13, 14-year-old girls, 13, 14-year-old people, not just girls. I feel like while at 13, I remember being 13 and while having boyfriends, or like being 13, 14, and while having boyfriends was a big deal. I don't think it was as big a deal as it was made out to be in this book. And again, I was that age when these books came out. I'm very contemporary to this. I'm a very old person. And yeah, I feel like they were making a bigger deal of it, and I felt as well like the handling of Liam, who was Nadine's boyfriend, who she was 13, he was 18. I don't feel like that was handled well. Again, I feel like Jacqueline Wilson in the 90s clearly had an issue with like age gap romances and didn't handle them well. This was handled better than Love Lessons, but it wasn't, again, I wanted more what I did like with Girls in Love is that, again, with the Liam situation, how it was handled was that, you know, the friends were saying there's something wrong here, but I wanted more than that. I wanted there to be either an adult get involved, or one of the friends to, you know, kind of actually specifically say this man seems to be a predator. You know, like, I just wanted that extra step to kind of really acknowledge that this isn't okay and shouldn't be being glorified and what you're wanting. And my issue is that throughout the series, Nadine, you know, throughout the series, throughout the 4 books, the girls are 14. And Nadine is always like, well, yeah, you know, I just wouldn't want to date a schoolboy. I'd only want an adult, someone who's over 18. And I'm like, no, sweetheart, you're a child. And again, and I do think that's where, like, Jacqueline Wilson is a fantastic author, because she really does drum into what it is like to be a 14-year-old girl, where you do feel like you are an old, you know, you are an adult. But I still feel like there's a duty of care, which I feel like she didn't completely miss the mark in that duty of care, but she also didn't hit the mark perfectly. The other 3 books in the series, so Girls Under Pressure, Girls Out Late, and Girls in Tears, wherever he is here, I gave those 3 all 4 stars. I really enjoyed all 3 of them. I thought they were handled, everything in them was handled really well. I thought that the books were just really fantastic stories. Girls Under Pressure particularly really hit me, just with, like, the whole themes of eating disorders. Again, that really impacted me. I did cry while reading that one. And Girls in Late and Girls in Tears as well, again, I thought were just really fantastic stories about being a teenage girl. So I thought they were fantastic. I just also had such a fantastic time reading that series. I then read Think Again by Jacqueline Wilson. So this is her adult debut, and this is the story of the girls 30 years later. They're having, so it's on Ellie's 40th birthday. 35 years later? I can't do the maths. 25 years later. Anyway, Ellie is turning 40. Oh, I wanted to like that book. So Think Again was probably one of my most anticipated books of, like, the season. So much so that, like, the day after I received Think Again, the new Richard Osman arrived on my doorstep, and I was like, what the hell have I ordered? There's nothing else exciting coming out. And it was Richard Osman, who, you know, normally is the most exciting author there is. So just to kind of let you know how much I was excited by Think Again. I feel like with Think Again, I feel like this was Jacqueline Wilson telling Jacqueline Wilson's story. I don't think she wrote this because she had a urge to go back and revisit Ellie. I felt like there were a few things that there were quite a few instances which weren't the same as in the girls series. Again, this is me being pernickety, but in this series, we meet the art teacher. He drives the girls home because he's like bumped into them at a train station or something with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend calls him Guy. In this book, we meet that same art teacher, and he's called Gary. First of all, why would you name your protagonist Gary? And secondly, like, come on, you wrote this book. Get your characters' names right. This felt like fan fiction. It felt like fan fiction, and honestly, if I didn't have the, like, sentimental attachment to these characters, I might have even DNF'd it. I wouldn't have rated it as I did. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. However, moving on, I then read The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean, and this was everything I wanted it to be and more. I didn't really know what to expect going into this one. It's a kind of cute, cosy fantasy. We're following a woman who looks after phoenixes at the zoo. She's the phoenix keeper. She's trying to set up a phoenix breeding program in her zoo. There is romance in here. There is fantastic anxiety rep. There is fantastic, well, I think, in my opinion, really good trans rep. And the reason I say that is I feel like it was done well because it was never mentioned. If you know what I mean, like it was, we knew that the main character was, that the character was trans, but it was never a part of her personality. It just, you know, her personality was everything, and being trans happened to be an aspect rather than the be all and end all of her personality, which to me makes me feel like that's just rep that I enjoy reading. You know, when basically in any kind of like diverse, particularly queer people, they just get on and live their lives. That's what I like to read. But yeah, I adored The Phoenix Keeper. I laughed, I cried, I loved it. 5 stars. 5 stars. We stayed on the 5-star roll through to Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is the third in the Maple Hill series, which started with Icebreaker. We then had Wildfire. This one I loved. I love Henry. I really liked Hannah. I just thought their romance was lovely. I had a fantastic time reading it. I will say that of the 3 books, this is probably my least favourite in this series. However, it is still a 5-star read. I still had a fantastic time. I still absolutely loved it. I just think that I preferred Icebreaker and Wildfire, and I now kind of want to do a reread of those 2 books. 2 more to go. I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I honestly don't really know what I think of this one. I've given it 3.5 stars. I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought the characters were okay. I think the atmosphere was incredible. The writing was fantastic. I didn't really get everything else. Slightly was a bit like, not sure. So we're following our main character, who is the daughter of a pastor. The pastor is like the priest in this small town in deep South Louisiana. A skull has turned up in the swamp, and it's kind of basically a witch hunt. And there's these rumours of the Low Man, who's like a kind of vampiric figure, which people are thinking that, you know, oh, again, they are such a kind of evangelical, I guess, Christian town because of the pastor in here, that the immediate thought on finding the skull is that there is a demon on the loose. And for me personally, I don't like books that are so heavily religious, whether it is, you know, even ones like this, which is kind of, I guess, is like, yeah, well, it is kind of saying that that amount of religion is dangerous. I just don't like reading that much religion, I'll be totally honest. So 3.5 stars. I also don't know if I liked or hated the end. I can't tell you because I don't know. Still thinking on that one. And then finally, the last book that I read this month is Appetite for Innocence by Lucinda Berry. Again, I read this one on my Kindle. I gave this one 4 stars. This is a very dark kind of survivor story, a final girl story. So we are following our main character, who has escaped from this man who's been holding her in his basement. And we're kind of having flashbacks between then and now on, first of all, like how she is coping and like what's happened, and also when it was happening as well. It was dark, it was twisty, again, check your triggers, but I really liked it. I was recommended this one by my friend Lex because I really liked The Butterfly Garden, which was another Lex rec. I don't think this one was as good as The Butterfly Garden, but there were very similar themes. So if you like kind of dark, twisty, survivor, kidnapping stories, give it a go. So that is my quite large wrap up for the month. I'm going to try and pick these ones up. There we go. Obviously this isn't all of them. A lot of the books I read digitally, and I had a great time. Like I said, I feel like this was my best reading month of the year. I had a fantastic time. I loved so many of the books that I read. Definitely got a couple of like favourite 5 stars in here with The Phoenix Keeper, Daydream and The Deal. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned and what your thoughts are on any of them. If you like this video, please leave me a like, subscribe down below. If you just want to leave me an emoji to let me know you were here, just leave me like a love heart colour of your choice for the girls series, because the girls series has been a big part of my channel for the last few months. And if you made it this far, I love you the most, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.